Hey, how you doing, Econ World? This is Jacob Clifford. Now, I have an interview with a guest that you already know, and he is awesome, Jason Welker. Jason Welker from all sorts of stuff. So really quick, introduce who you are, and then we're going to start talking about some economics.
Sure. My name is Jason Welker. I've been making economics YouTube videos since 2011. I've also been teaching economics at international schools since 2004. I've recently left my teaching job and moved back to the United States, where I'm focusing on Mr. Econ students full-time right now. Some YouTube videos, my website, econclassroom.com, formerly welkerswickonomics.com. So if you check that out, you'll see lots of new and old resources for students, but there's a whole lot of new ones coming in the next few months.
People always assume that you and I are competitors, and although we both agree, because we're economists, the competition is great. But the reality is, I tell people at my workshops, because I'm an AP consultant and I train teachers, I say, listen, here's like the 4 or 5 best YouTube channels, and they're different for different things. Mine, I'm a gimmick guy. You can tell I'm blah and all crazy. I'm all about fast review. You've got to get ready, and then you got 3 minutes before you have to go into a test. You watch one of my videos, and I tell them all the time, if you got a kid who needs to go in more depth, if you have a student who maybe missed a day and needs like a full lesson and needs some really good details, you're a super academic guy, and so your videos are great for that. And I also tell them about MGM Foodie. Have you ever met her, by the way?
I've not met her, but I love her cartoons.
Yeah.
She does a great job, yeah.
She does, and I think it'd be nice if she went more full-time, kind of like we're going, because I'd like to see some more things that she does, because her cartoons are pretty fun. I always wondered how long it took to draw each one of those things. You know?
And every econ YouTube teacher has a style that I appreciate too. I look at your style and I think, wow, he's doing something that I wouldn't really feel comfortable doing, putting myself in front of the camera and doing the green screen thing. And I just let that, some of that is kind of beyond me, but it has such value as well. And MGM Foodie, having the cartoon, creating that real visual creates a real useful experience for students as well. And I always told my students, I taught AP for 9 years as well, and I would tell my students, Jacob Clifford, AC/DC, use those as well. We're not substitutes, we're complements. We complement each other very well. So that, I think having more, obviously the competition is good. It creates a better experience for the student, but I think we are complementing each other well also, and that you get maybe a little bit more in-depth, longer form lesson using my YouTube videos, whereas yours are way more, I think, entertaining and capture the kids' interest and get them really excited and just stoked about economics as well. And they're a little bit more snappy and to the point. So we're complements, not substitutes.
I agree. I love the econ term. That's great. Why do you love teaching economics?
Some of the experiences I had growing up, so I actually, a little bit of background, I went to an international school myself. Oh. So I did my high school in Malaysia in the late 90s.
Wow.
When, if you recall, back in the 90s, Asia had a little bit of a financial crisis.
Sure.
And I experienced things that I didn't understand when I was there, such as the value of the Malaysian currency falling by 50% in the span of about 2 weeks.
Wow.
So when I got to then I went to college in Seattle during the World Trade Organization summit, which you may recall in 1999 resulted in massive
protests
in which clouds of tear gas were blowing down the street past my dorm room. So I had a real reason to want to know what the heck was going on at the time. So I chose to study economics, and as I got deeper into it, I really began to realize it was opening my eyes to things going on in the world around me that I just didn't understand before. So I've always said that economics, having an understanding of economics, it's not about getting a good test score or getting a good job after college. It's about being a good citizen and being an informed citizen and knowing what's going on in the world around you. Looking at the front page of the newspaper, turning on the evening news, and just actually understanding to the core what's really happening in the world. So it's a way of looking at the world. And when you start teaching it, and then of course for the students, when you start learning it, you gain this. It's kind of like Neo in the Matrix. Kind of like a real understanding and awareness of the world around you. So having the privilege to teach that to kids, you're really opening kids' eyes to what's going on in the world around us at any time. So I understand a lot of teachers are given an economics class without having maybe taught it before or studied it much in college beyond introductory micro and macro. And I think today more than ever, with YouTube and with the different channels out there, teachers have the opportunity to really learn the concepts themselves quickly, and then kind of learn along with the kids. So I think teachers have new teachers may struggle at first, but there's so many resources out there now that we didn't have when we started teaching.
Oh yeah,
13 years ago.
Yeah.
So it's a really exciting time for teachers, and of course, it's always an exciting time to be an economics student.
Totally. And along those lines about resources, it's interesting because econ has even more resources. I mean, everybody has YouTube, and there's YouTube teachers out there, but econ has all sorts of foundations and organizations that are trying to push economics. Some of them, like Prager University, maybe are a little bit one-sided, and I mean, that's just one example, but there's a lot of information that's out there, and it's growing and growing, particularly in economics and getting, videos and concepts and stuff out there. So kudos to you for doing a great job of getting it out there as well. I know this is a tough question, so you've got to answer though. I know you're gonna. If someone asked me this, I'd have to. I don't know. I'd try to get around it. Which one do you like more, macro or micro?
Oh. My students used to make fun of me because every time we'd start a new unit, I would tell them, this is my favorite unit. I said, Mr. Welker, cost of production was your favorite unit. How can game theory and oligopoly be your favorite unit? I'm like, no, this is the unit where we get to play games. So there's always something about a new unit to look forward to. And honestly, my favorite topic is whatever I'm teaching at that time. Every time I start making a video, I just get really excited about that topic. And then I think, oh my gosh, I love perfect competition. But then the next video may be fiscal policy, and I'm just getting really excited about that. And of course, I think macro more than micro today is the more relevant one. You can't turn on the news without hearing macro, especially the international trade component and the whole tariff story that's going on right now. So, I think macro is overall probably the more relevant and interesting in terms of our lives going on around us. But especially now that I'm working for myself, microeconomics is more relevant.
Right? Isn't it true? It's funny because, the question's kind of like, which one of your children do you love more, right? It's like, how do I answer? So just to get a definitive answer, are you saying macro?
I'd say right now, it's probably macro. But
okay.
By the time we end this call, I'll probably be, in love with micro again.
I'll say the same thing in reverse. I think micro, partially because the teaching side, there's just so many great simulations for microeconomics you can run, and the students can really do it. Macro is awesome because you're right, it's out there in the news, but you really can't do fiscal policy, right? You can't be like, okay, now let's control the money supply. You can't do that. Whereas in an econ class, you can say, all right, now let's be perfect competition and let's see what happens when try to raise the price. And so you can actually have students doing it. But I'm the same way as you. I mean, you gotta love them both. And if a teacher doesn't love them both, it's probably because they don't quite understand them both, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Probably,
So when it comes to AP, and you've taught AP for years, and you've also taught IB for years, when it comes to AP, would you tell a teacher who's like, okay, I'm new to this class, I have no information, I haven't taken college econ for like 5, 6, 7 years, maybe 10 years, or I haven't taken it at all, I have no background information, not just where do I start, but what things should I start putting in my mind to get me even rolling?
So I started teaching AP in 2005, and that was before Econ Concepts in 60 Seconds. That was before Khan Academy. That was before there were any. Actually, YouTube might have just been born that very year. So I got a textbook, and I read that textbook cover to cover. And it had been a few years since I had studied it in college, but the concepts came back to me pretty quickly.
Real quick, what was the textbook? Was McConnell and Brew? Mankiw?
It was McConnell and Brew.
Okay.
Yep. That was the only book I had at the time, and I got to say, I don't think I would recommend new teachers start with a textbook. I'm not picking on McConnell and Brew. It could be Krugman or Mankiw, McConnell and Brew. They're all going to be a bit over your head if you've never studied economics before.
Right.
So today I would actually urge new teachers, and this isn't a shameless plug, but go see what teachers like you and I are offering them in terms of resources, because we remember what it was like to be that first time econ teacher and struggle to get through this really thick college level textbook without much background in economics ourselves.
Yeah.
And when you and I make a video or put out a review packet or a revision guide or a set of class notes, we have the student in mind. And if you're a new econ teacher, you're also a student. So like I said, you have to learn along with your students. So stay ahead of your students, obviously. And if you know a few months ahead of time that you're going to be teaching AP Macro or AP Micro, do your preparation, but maybe start with some of the alternative resources out there, not just one of the big textbooks from one of the big publishers. So they're really hard to digest if you don't have that background in economics.
Yeah.
So yes, get yourself a Krugman text. I would actually recommend Krugman over McConnell and Brew. I believe it's a bit more digestible.
Sure.
But along with that, while you work through that dense college level textbook, be watching those YouTube videos on ACDC or on Jason Welker's YouTube channel, because we are also following the same syllabus you're going to be using, but we are explaining things in ways that you will need to understand them when you go to teach them to your students. And then, of course, if you use our videos with your students, that's even better as well.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. And we appreciate the people that do that. Yeah, I just remember being a brand new econ teacher doing the same thing and be like, okay, I'm not exactly sure where to start. But it's interesting. It's funny how a subject can be. I mean, I don't know, because I don't teach a lot of other subjects. I mean, history, it's linear. You don't teach things completely out of place. You don't teach World War II before World War I. But in econ, we start with Unit 1, and Unit 1 is awesome. It establishes how awesome econ is, right? You're not just jumping in, all right, and fiscal policy, or okay, and let's jump into cost curves. You start off with this idea of opportunity cost, right? So I guess in your opinion, for teachers, how important is opportunity cost when it comes to explaining the economic way of thinking?
Yeah, actually, I just made a video the day before yesterday called An Introduction to Cost-Benefit Decision Making. And once you grasp that concept of opportunity cost, the fact that there's nothing free in the world, everything else kind of starts to make sense. And that could be, for example, the recent news about America's new steel and aluminum tariffs, right? What's the opportunity cost of that? On the surface, it sounds great. We're going to create jobs. We're going to revive our steel industry. But of course, we need to know that there's an opportunity cost and a monetary cost involved with any economic decision. So, and the fact that that's the very first concept we teach is excellent. And there's a reason for it. It's because throughout the entire course, we need to remind our students that there's no such thing as a free lunch, that every economic decision has costs and benefits. And policymakers and consumers and business owners need to always weigh both the benefits, which sometimes appear great. Oh, look at how great this is going to be for me. But there's always a cost involved. So introducing opportunity cost, it's a simple concept. Kids can understand it. How are you going to use your time when you get home from school tonight? Are you going to play video games? Are you going to go for a bike ride? Are you going to study economics? What are you going to do? And just they understand it. They grasp it really quickly. But then, later on when we're studying international trade and fiscal policy and all the more advanced concepts, opportunity cost just comes back again and again as the core fundamental concept of economics, that there's no such thing as a free lunch, that every benefit comes with some cost, and we need to understand that. So yeah, I think it's excellent. That's the first concept we teach in economics, because it is so fundamental and it does tie into every other unit in the course.
Right, so. Totally. My favorite quote in all of economics, it's Thomas Sowell, but regardless of where you stand or where someone stands on the political spectrum, he says there are no solutions, only trade-offs. And I think that's so great. There's no problem that has infinite perfectness, right? All benefit. There's got to be some sort of trade-off.